This man right here, DeAndre Swift, is becoming one of my favorite players to draft as my 6th drafted player walking into 2023. All formats, redraft, dynasty, doesn't matter. This guy right here could win you a league. This guy right here, DeAndre Swift, is one of the final players when you're combing through rounds 5 and 6 that have that I can be top 6 to 10 at my position kind of upside. DeAndre Swift could win you a league, and I'm going to tell you why people are too down on this kid. Is there risk involved? Yeah. Is it baked into a 6th round value? I believe so. Is there upside that way exceeds the risk level you're taking on? Absolutely. I'm going to break it down. Today, he also becomes a moon man.
The moon men dropping loads in outer space.
Congrats, DeAndre. The Fantasy Football Show begins right now.
This is the Fantasy Football Show with your host, Smitty.
Take a lap.
There is so much hate around DeAndre right now, and I get why. We all believed in him to the tune of a top 12 overall player last year, and he let us down tremendously. But a lot of the blame goes on the Detroit Lions and how they decided to use him. Even upon his return from injury, when he was capable of shouldering the load, they kept rolling with Jamal, and they limited Swift. Now, a pessimistic person could say, hey, Smitty, well, they limited him for a reason. Why is that? Did they not trust him? What's going on with DeAndre Swift? But that part to me doesn't matter so much because the team that acquired him via trade does believe in him, or they wouldn't have traded for him. So I'm going to break down a little bit as to why the one major concern people have that are against DeAndre is almost irrelevant if you believe the Eagles believe they didn't make a bad trade and they're going to start utilizing this guy from the beginning. Injury concern is the only, and it is a concern, the only legitimate concern that one can have if they objectively look at what DeAndre Swift brings to the table. Now, injury risk is a big, big problem. So if somebody comes to me and says, Smitty, I'm not buying into DeAndre Swift in 2023, no matter what you tell me,
I'm worried about him getting hurt.
I hear you. It's an argument that honestly nothing can argue. No argument can give you a satisfactory answer because we don't know if he'll stay healthy. But when other arguments are brought to the table, they can be shot down pretty easily. And again, if injury's your main gripe, I get it. I understand you. But when people suggest he hasn't been productive or
what has he done?
The guy's got some remarkable numbers in his favor, and we're not cherry picking stats trying to find the right number that will support a DeAndre Swift narrative. Since 2020, DeAndre Swift is number 5 in the entire NFL among running backs with 30 yards receiving per game. He averaged 5.5 yards per carry last season, which if you look at the running backs from last year and you take out all the RBs that didn't have any sort of, full-time gig at all, and you narrow it down to these gentlemen right here, Breece Hall, James Cook, Khalil Herbert, J.K. Dobbins, DeAndre Swift, Aaron Jones. DeAndre Swift was number 5 in the entire National Football League in yards per carry. That is quite impressive. A number I believe a lot of people don't really realize, nor do they care, because they're dead set against DeAndre Swift because he's injury prone, because he failed them. The Eagles are 2nd in the entire National Football League in run block rate. 2nd, the Eagles are 3rd in the National Football League in yards before contact with 17-19. 3rd. And they traded for a guy in DeAndre Swift that was 3rd in receiving touchdowns, 12th in yards per catch for all running backs, number 10 in targets for RBs. The list goes on and on. The guy's literally in the top 10 to 12 in every single one of these categories as far as receiving the ball, targets, and his yards per carry, like I mentioned, is 5.5. Oh, but Smitty, he just didn't play a lot. He wasn't available. He scored 8 total touchdowns in a season where everyone's saying he never showed up. He never was available to play football, yet he scored 8 total touchdowns, 5 rushing touchdowns, I might add. So let me get this straight. 8 total touchdowns, tied for 3rd in yards per carry, traded to a team with arguably the best offensive line in football, that was 2nd in run block win rate, that was 3rd in yards before contact. Yeah, I'm not excited about this guy I'm describing. I'm not excited. I'm really excited. And you should be too, because guess what? The guy I'm describing that scored 8 touchdowns last year, that was a top 12 overall pick because of all this upside we did get a glimpse of, and we did. We can't say he wasn't around. You can't score 8 touchdowns on no workload. Remember that he had 48 receptions in 2022, which was top 12 in the National Football League. Playing dormant football, not playing football, never being trusted by his team. He was still in the top 12 in running running back reception totals, 48 receptions. 48 receptions is a boatload for a guy that was so disappointing as he felt. And he did feel that way. I'm not trying to defend what happened in 2022. I'm not trying to explain or make excuses for why he failed all of us, and me included. I believed in him. But to get 48 receptions, 8 total touchdowns with all the stats that I just described, going to being traded to the best team of football on the ground, running the football, best offensive line in the game. How are we not excited about 6th round ADP? The beauty is that his ADP in round 6 package isn't all the risk. You're talking about guys like Dameon Pierce, and I like Dameon Pierce. You're talking about Pacheco, and I like Pacheco. You're talking about guys that I wouldn't mind if you wanted to go that route at RB. I get it, especially if your argument is, hey, I'm afraid he'll get hurt. But if your argument is that he's not effective when he's on the field, and if your argument is, Smitty, he just hasn't done anything, you have an argument with injury concern, but not with effectiveness when he's been used. All of this adds up to a whole lot in my book. This adds up to upside. DeAndre Swift has upside. Yeah, a lot of risk, but upside written all over him. And that risk we're worried about is baked right in to his 6th round value. I venture to say there is no better player to grab in the 5.5 to 6.5 round territory than DeAndre Swift right now. You can go very light at your RB2, maybe do one of our famous Gibbs and Burrow, Olave, Garrett Wilson strategies. Walk into your running back 1 with an underrated Jahmyr Gibbs and do some sort of awesome Swift and Alvin Kamara and Charbonnet as your running back 2 situation. Swift is one of the most fantastic players here as your 2nd drafted running back. Safely paired to a Pacheco, a Kamara, a Dameon Pierce. I think it's important to maybe get Swift with one of those guys as your running back 2 rotation and then have a more secure RB1. But this is the kind of thing that I look at and I go, wow, my running back 2 is so underrated. I could win a league with this combo right here. Give me Swift and Kamara all day as my running back 2. Mix in the Charbonnet on top of that. This makes me happy. Give me Garrett Wilson. Give me Chris Olave. Don't want Joe Burrow round 4. Maybe you don't get Joe Burrow in round 4. Drake London round 4. Christian Watson round 4. You still get Gibby as your 3rd drafted player or your 4th drafted player. Better yet, 4th drafted player. And come in with an A-Rod later and go wide receiver, running back. And DeAndre Swift is your RB2. This is kind of the definition of hero RB. Hero RB being that you go strong with 1 RB. Gibbs is strong in my opinion. Some would say you need a stronger RB than that. I say, let's test it out. I say, I love it. Give me Gibbs as my running back 1, or if you're lucky and you get Bijan here and you go wide receiver, I'm fine with that. I'll map that out next, but let's say you get Jahmyr Gibbs as your running back 1. This is hero RB. Wide receiver. You got your 1 RB. Hero RB, here we come. DeAndre Swift could be your hero. And if you get that higher 1st round draft pick, you go Bijan, you go Olave instead of Gibby, and you could go Gibby too and still deploy this. I mean, this guy could be your flex option. I don't care. You're going to win a league if this is your flex option. Give me a break. I'm going to put Gibbs back there for a second. Take that in. Soak it in. Bijan, Gibbs, Olave, Drake London, or put Christian Watson here. And you may have to do something like this, whatever ends up making it work, but take that in. Soak it in. That's an unbelievable team that you walk straight to the bank. You walk straight to the bank and you say, where's my advance on my league entry fee? But let's say you don't go RB, at least not a 2nd running back in the top 4 rounds. So you go Bijan here, you get a high 1st round pick. Olave, Watson, Drake London, hero RB, here we come. DeAndre Swift, knock it out of the park. There's just no other way to say this. This kid has so much upside. All of the risk is absolutely 100% baked in. If you don't like him, I get it. We've got a handful of people that just won't go near him. They think he's going to get hurt. They don't think he's done anything. And again, I understand, I respect your take, but there are going to be players that are risky. There are going to be players that have a lot of question marks walking into the upcoming season. But is the risk baked in? Is the upside far greater than the risk you might be taking on? And in this case, if you are a Swift doubter and you're even partially swayed by the stats that I threw out, all really amazing 2022 statistics, man. man. I mean, we're talking about a guy that averaged 5.5 yards per carry, number 5 in the National Football League when you file it down to the guys that actually mean anything. And he scored 8 touchdowns on a very, very disappointing season where the offense and the coaching staff had training wheels on him all year long, and they didn't take him off. He scored 8 touchdowns with training wheels on. He was number 3 in the National Football League, tied for 3rd in receiving touchdowns, 10th in targets for running backs. What is there not to like about this guy going over to the Philadelphia Eagles to run behind the best offensive line in football? Why is this not a risk worth taking? Because he burned you? Because he failed you last year? I mean, what is the reasoning behind not liking his 6th round ADP versus his top 12 overall value last year? If you think he doesn't have the ability, then we're not on the same page. And again, I respect it. But I'm telling you right now, this guy, if he stays healthy, and there is a risk involved there. I don't think there's a risk anywhere else. I don't think it's about talent. I don't think it's about anything else. I don't think anybody has a legitimate argument about why DeAndre Swift will fail unless it's injury angled. There is injury concern. If he stays healthy, the team that just traded for him, gave up draft capital for him, is going to get the most out of him. And we're going to see his disappointing 8 touchdown season last year where he didn't get used. He didn't get used and he scored 8 touchdowns. We're going to see that turn into something magical. And keep in mind, I've used nothing but stats really to argue my point. My gut instinct when I watch him play is more of the driving factor here than anything else. And you can't take away somebody's gut instinct when assessing talent. And maybe somebody's argument could be, hey, Smitty, you can't take away my gut instinct that he's going to fail. Touche. Go on with your bad self. Doubt him all you want. We need a lot of doubters anyway. So file on in and doubt him. Let's kick his ADP into 6.5 to 7.5, please. When I watch DeAndre play, I see an electric, explosive 12 to 14 touchdown player that has 65, 75 reception capability, 800 and 900, 900 and 900 capability in terms of total yardage in an offense like Philly. My gut tells me if he stays healthy, and it's a big if, but it comes down to cost of entry, which makes it worth it. If he stays healthy, explosion. That's my gut. That's my eyeball test. That's not the stats that I've been cranking out for the last 10 minutes. That is my gut instinct when I watch him carry the football. It's why we all loved him last year. DeAndre Swift, you are Smitty approved.
You've just been Smitty approved.
You are also a moon man. Congratulations, young man.
The Moon Men, dropping loads in outer space.
Get on over to thefantasyfootballshow.com for all your year-round fantasy football rankings, bold predictions, one-on-one text advice, everything you need to dominate your league, all at thefantasyfootballshow.com. And don't forget, we draft every Thursday, Friday, Saturday at midnight Eastern. And Underdog Fantasy will match up to $100 in your first deposit if you use promo code Smitty if you're new to Underdog Fantasy. But we draft every single Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and I want you to draft with me. I want to know where you're going to draft DeAndre Swift in your Underdog Fantasy draft. And don't think you have to wait until Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Click that link in the description and get going. Get on Underdog. Get prepared. Draft in a couple drafts. The Best Ball Mania drafts are up. Go draft DeAndre Swift at round 6 and go win a Best Ball Mania league. Now get out of here.
This is the Fantasy Football Show with your host, Smitty.